At University Life, we often talk about university as community. There is strength in coming together and sharing information and resources, as well as camaraderie, things we all need in this particular moment. To that end, we've assembled several distinguished panelists from career offices throughout Columbia to share their perspective, offer advice, and some answers to your questions. First is Heather Krasna, Assistant Dean and Director, Career Services for Mailman School of Public Health. Heather is a higher education career services practitioner, career coach, and author with over 20 years of experience in providing career advising to students and other professionals. Next is Juliana Alvarez Rivera, the Director of Alumni and International Career Services at the Law School's Office of Career Services and Professional Development. She's the primary counselor for all law school alumni and oversees the career programming and counseling for the international transfer JDs and LLM students. A lawyer herself, she has been a law school career services professional since 2006, joining Columbia in 2017. Next is Naveed Ahmad, the Director of Student Life at the School of Nursing. In his role, Naveed oversees all career development and student engagement initiatives within the Office of Student Affairs. With a background in leadership and management, he has collaborated with various employers to create leadership and professional development programming for nursing students. Next is Diane Spizzirro, the Director of Career Education and Development and lecturer, the Director of Career Education and Development and a lecturer at Columbia School of Professional Studies. She is also the current president of the New York Mental Health Counseling Association, an active member of the National Career Development Association and National Association of College and Employers. Diane is a seasoned career management professional with expertise in higher education, corporate training and development, as well as private practice. Next is Tom Monaco, Executive Director of Experienced Professionals Career Management in the Career Management Center at the Columbia Business School. Tom manages career services for Columbia Business School alumni and the executive MBA students, where he and his team plan and present programs on issues related to professional development and the job search process. Next is Meg Heenehan, the Executive Director of the Office of Career Services at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. Having joined in 1997, Meg oversees OCS and specifically works with the Student Relations team, where she provides career advisement to students and alumni, as well as teaches the professional development course and conducts workshops on a variety of topics related to career development. Our final presenter is Jenna Farley Fleming, the Associate Director of Shared Interest Groups for the Columbia Alumni Association. In her role, Jenna serves as a primary staff liaison for many identity, professional, and hobby-based communities that make up the full list of SIGs, which are the Shared Interest Groups. Additionally, Jenna has served as a lead on the development and execution of the See You There program, and as a CAA liaison to many offices throughout the university. Before I turn it over to our first presenter, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this program will be recorded so that we can share it later via University Life's YouTube channel. This will allow students in various time zones to view the program at a later date. If you have any questions about this recording, contact our office. Also, please make sure to remain muted and keep your screen off. If you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box. We ask you to send your message not to everyone, but to the host, University Life. And now I will turn it over to Heather.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today. My first topic is kind of to start with the bad news. There's good news, there's bad news. The first piece of this is that COVID-19 is going to change the job search for everyone. And what used to be the case even 2 months ago about a fantastic job market where employers were competing for the best candidates and it was easier for people to find jobs, that may no longer be the case for many of our 2020 graduates. I'm going to be drawing on some resources and strategies that had worked when I was the director of career services at another school in 2009 and 10 during the last really bad recession. Keeping in mind that actually everybody expects this to be an order of magnitude more difficult than it even was back then. So I just want to start out with some facts and then give you some tips and strategies about what you can do, what you can control, and how to make the most of this very challenging situation. So the first thing to just acknowledge is that a lot of people are now out of jobs, a very large number of people. And it is true that those candidates who come from Columbia University and have a really competitive degree and have achieved so many amazing things will definitely probably have an easier time than many other people. And at the same time, just like this new virus is the novel coronavirus, no one is immune entirely from this recession. Everyone will be impacted in some way, very likely. So there's lots of possible things that happen in these kind of situations. The job market often just becomes much more competitive. That being said, there could be some glimmers of hope because there will now be investments in a lot of different areas that could be a wonderful fit for, Columbia students, including public health, healthcare, the sciences, and so on. Things you might not have considered, but which may have incredible opportunities for people with your training and skills. So this is why we want to think of what you can control. There are things that you can't control, but in this situation, what could you take ownership for? And the main thing is your response. And so your framing of this, your mindset, your response are the key things that you can control. So the ways you can strategize around this is especially to persist. You may encounter more rejections than you might normally encounter in the job search. So you may have to apply for more opportunities, put more energy into applications. Make sure you're establishing relationships with people. We'll talk about networking towards the end. It's really crucial, and especially now. But be able to give back to others, be helpful to others. Don't be scared to ask for help at the same time. Be flexible. We hope you don't all have to do gig work, contract work, but people became very creative in the last recession. Many people took up consulting, volunteering, starting their own kinds of business. So thinking ahead of the curve, staying ahead of the curve is key. Building your skills and credentials, maybe continuing to take some more training so you can be the most competitive candidate, taking care of yourself and trying to maintain a growth mindset even in the face of all this stress. So here are some actionable tips really quick. Structure your day. Set some measurable goals. These are just some examples. You may need to do a lot more job applications, maybe depending on your market less, it depends. Follow up with people. Just set yourself measurable targets. Keep track of your search. Find some support. You reach out to your career services office here at Columbia. Find other colleagues, classmates that can keep you motivated, keep each other accountable, and try to stay focused on the positives and moving yourself forward. It's easy to get stuck. It's easy to just sort of freeze. You have to take action steps and move forward. Consider, again, networking. We'll talk more about how to use the alumni community, but target organizations of interest, stay ahead of the curve, keep up on the news, see who just received a big grant or award or venture capital funding, and follow that funding. Those will be where the jobs are going to end up. So then look for people that you can connect with and show empathy. Everyone is going through something. We don't know how other people are feeling. So start with empathy, offer to be helpful, and then ask for some guidance. One other tip is just keep aware of how your current job offer could be impacted. If you're lucky enough to have a job offer already, now might be a great time just to make sure everything is on track, see if there's anything else you need to do to maybe negotiate things. If you don't have an offer, don't wait for an offer. Continue applying until you get one. And that's it for me. I'm glad to take questions at the end, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. That was great. It's always helpful to remember that even in these uncertain times, there are actually a few things we do have control over, and to really grab hold of those things as we navigate these times. So next up is Juliana Alvarez Rivera from the law school.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen if I can do this properly. There we go. So my topic is really on taking a moment to first acknowledge just the trauma and the uncertainty that we're all dealing with. And, you know, I think it's definitely a crucial part of sort of making it through, right? If we don't know what we're facing, we sort of can't get past it as easily. And so, you know, there's sort of a different spectrum from disappointment to fear, anxiety, worry, many different layers. And having been a first generation student myself, I can really relate to how this may be more difficult for our Columbia first generation and also our international students. There's definitely other layers of anxiety about your career prospects, both self-imposed as well as the ones imagined to be imposed by family members or your community's expectations. And you know, this is really a tough time that we're going to be going through. But what I'd like all of you to just keep in mind is that, you know, none of this is your fault. You haven't done anything wrong. You aren't letting anyone down. You're, you know, going to have a great deal to be proud of, you know, going through this and sort of making it to the other side. So, you know, you're all achievers out there in the audience, and you will continue to be so. You know, right now we're facing literally life and death issues, right? It's like, you know, protecting our health and those of the ones we love is the key importance of the moment. And it's okay to feel all the feelings and anxieties that go with that. But I'd like to suggest that you then sort of, you know, manage them by taking action. And I hope that I can provide a sense of perspective that comes from having lived through various recessions, including when I was an attorney, going through the dot-com bubble crash, later the economic impact of the 9/11 attacks on New York's economy, and most recently I witnessed the effect of the Great Recession of 2007 on the job market from the perspective of already being a law school career counselor. So how do we sort of, you know, make it past this? I'd like to suggest that you have two components that are going to help you in the career development. One is your external support system. And as you can see on the screen, number one on the list, I say, is career counselors and your career services office programming and resources. But certainly there are plenty of other resources through Columbia. For my international students out there, the ISSO staff, you know, provides great advice remotely, even during these times, on all the visa issues and things that are coming up for our international student population. Also, for those of you that are international and have a current job offer, but you're worried about sort of the implications of what may happen in terms of visa status, et cetera, most of your employers likely have, you know, immigration counsel that they turn to. So, you know, don't be afraid to sort of discuss these ideas as they arise. And then, you know, sort of picking up a little bit on what Heather said earlier about sort of having a network. In my years of doing career services, I would say that what's proven true over and over is just how key it is to have sort of tapping into your existing network. And believe me, you have one, even if you don't realize it yet, as well as continuing to build your network. And so, you know, what may have been once a professional coffee chat that you may go to meet someone new is now going to become a Zoom chat. And so, you know, come to your career services professionals to ask about, you know, how to approach people, how to do that, and really sort of, you know, take the right actions to sort of help you develop that community, because people will be what helps you get through this whole situation. The second part of the equation is your internal support system. And Heather also mentioned briefly sort of the idea of self-care. And I think that I'm a big proponent of calling sort of the combined term of sort of career wellness, because I think that if you're not taking care of your physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being, it's very hard to then be sort of the best professional that you can be, and also deal with the various stresses that come from whatever your job is, right? So, you know, what are some ideas about that? Certainly from the physical point of view, it could be anything from just taking a socially distanced walk outside to dancing to your favorite tunes indoors, doing some yoga, emotional and mental well-being, some meditation potentially. There's some resources that are going to be shared after the workshop that I recommend, and I hope you take a look at those resources as well. Social wellness, making sure you stay connected even as we stay apart, as the new saying goes, using Zoom, using the phone, you know, just being able to sort of call upon your group of people that can help you out, your friends, family, and loved ones. And spiritual, again, sort of, you know, meditation, affirmations, taking time in nature, writing a gratitude journal, or some good thoughts. And sort of continuing on this sort of internal support system, I would say that if you were to do a poll of what employers are looking for, the top 10 skills or qualities that they say they're looking for are, is the person displaying a strong work ethic? Are they dependable? Do they have a positive attitude? Are they self-motivated? Are they team-oriented, organized? Do they work well under pressure? Are they effective communicators, flexible, confident? Those are the top 10. And guess what? Those are the qualities that you're going to also need to use in the process of your job search and in your career development going forward. And so, you know, if you come up, you know, through this situation with a positive attitude, develop your resilience. And on the point of resilience, I saw an article just the other day saying that staying indoors actually for extended periods of time builds resilience. So who knew? We're already taking care of that. But really having sort of this possibility mindset and going forward not only will get you through this job search and the trauma that we've sort of all been hit with, but also make you the kind of employee that employers will love to hire and to keep on. So I'll turn things back over and look forward to any questions during the Q&A period.
Thank you, Juliana, and thank you for the reminder that in this time we are actually building our resilience for trauma. It's a great thing to keep in mind and help in terms of maintaining our sense of perspective with all of this. So thank you. Next up is Naveed Ahmad from the School of Nursing.
Thank you, Ixchel. So I wanted to talk to everyone about skill development and what we could do during this period to develop our skill set and our toolkit. I think this pandemic, despite all of the negative things that have come along with it, is a great opportunity to reflect and retool. What do we mean by that? I think it's a time for us to reassess what our skill set is, areas of opportunity where we could develop. It's an opportunity to boost some of the hard skills, the soft skills that maybe we're lacking in, or things that we could use. And it's an opportunity when you're in that interview, when you're talking to those employers and hiring managers, to say, hey, this is what I've been doing over the past few months. I wanted to continue to grow. I wanted to really add on to my toolkit. And it's a good point of reference in terms of, hey, what have you been up to the last few months? So we do realize that everyone in this call is going to have a different skill set and is also going to have different needs. You're all going into various fields, various graduate schools that you're graduating from. And we know that there's not going to be a one size fits all. I can't tell everybody here to just hop onto coding and learn, Java. that's not going to apply to everyone. So I think I really need you to all dig deep and figure out, where can I find my route? And we also want to be mindful, as Juliana mentioned, we all have a certain amount of bandwidth that we can handle. You're all you're in classes, you're about to wrap up, and there may be an opportunity for you to take on one or two things, but we don't want to overextend. We want you to make sure you also do take care of yourselves. So let's start with this. What are your current career skill sets? So think specifically about your career path. I talked to our nursing students, and obviously a lot of our nursing students are wrapping up their programs. Some of them are on the front lines helping right now. But what is it that you can do right now after you graduate, so that when you're ready to graduate, you can hit the ground running? So think specifically about your career path. What are some things that you can improve on or add to your resume? As Heather mentioned, certifications are one thing. For our nursing students, we say, hey, maybe if you're looking to go into HIV/AIDS, maybe you can get an AIDS certification. And there might be a lot of different certifications that you, in your particular field, may be able to accrue right now. Trainings, these things don't have to necessarily lead to a certification, but any opportunity for you to continue to learn and become a lifelong learner, I think is important in terms of your development. And then micro-credentials. I think we typically in the past, these have been kind of seen as resume fillers, but I think their importance now is more important than ever, because it's filling in those gaps. So I like LinkedIn Learning, I like Udemy, Coursera, there's a lot of different ones, edX, quite a few various ones. And there's opportunities there for you to be able to take a course or something that you don't already know, or maybe know partially, to kind of fill in some of those gaps. And those are called micro-credentials. Then we can expand on our hard skills. Obviously, this is going to vary from each person to each person, but we could refine and improve our basic hard skills, learn complementary skills, things that we can kind of add on to our current skill set that would also help us. Computer technology, obviously, that's one of the big things that I can mention here, just because look at our current world today, right? We talk about Zoom fatigue. We talk about kind of moving everything online and virtual. It's a bit of the world that we live in. And I think to understand that when we go back and when we're actually in the work field, that technology is going to have a bigger role in some of the aspects that maybe didn't have so much technology. To understand that is to be able to get ahead of it and get on top of that skill set. So some certain things, for example, Microsoft Office. You know what, if maybe you're not the greatest in terms of macros or pivot charts, now's a good opportunity for you to learn that. Efficiency and effectiveness. Learning typing, just in terms of, if you can increase your productivity, be a better typer, it's just going to make you that much more effective when you're actually in the workplace. Data analysis. I think across the board for a lot of the different positions, data informs a lot of the decisions that we make. If you have the ability to get inside the data and see what it really means, it's going to be helpful for you. And then obviously I mentioned coding before, but R, Python, Java, C++. I have links in every single one of these. So if you want to look into Microsoft Office, typing, data analysis, coding, I have links embedded. So when that is shared, you'll be able to just click through it. And then languages, I talked to our nursing students, we have Spanish medical terminology. Maybe that's something that you could add on to your course. I'm not asking you to learn another language, but maybe there's certain things that you can kind of add on. And then of course, develop by doing. It might be a good opportunity to take freelance work. If you're one of our teacher college students, for example, maybe tutoring might be something you want to take up right before you go into work field. Build up your skill set, build up your ability to kind of add onto your resume and talk about that with employers. And then we also have finally soft skills. And I think this is kind of a little bit of the X factor. You can refine your communication skills, email etiquette, presentation skills, interview skills, getting used to having an interview online over the phone, and even simple things like active listening, really being a active participant in the conversation and really understanding and knowing what the other person is saying to you is an important skill set to have across the board. Things like cultural competence and bias, I think employers are looking for leaders that understand the importance of diversity in the workplace. Time management and organizational skills. Think about what you're doing right now. I think we all try to multitask and we always overestimate our ability to multitask. So think about monotasking. And there's quite a few in the resources that I'm offering. There is a list of of apps that you could use to monotask so that you could dedicate 30 minutes to one particular thing, knock that out, and then go to the next thing. Leadership, change management is really important right now. Obviously, the world has changed, and the ability to continue to lead in those types of environments is really important. Leveraging social media has been mentioned before. Leverage your networks, and you have a network no matter what you think. You really do have one, and now's the time to connect to those people. And then, of course, as Juliana mentioned, self-care. Take care of yourselves. Now's the time to create that long-lasting self-care regimen for yourselves. And here are some additional resources. Once again, this will be emailed out to everyone. You know, I really wish you the best of luck, and thank you.
Thank you, Naveed. Great tip about sharpening our soft skills and our micro skills. That's a new term for me. And I bet those are the things that actually get us through the day. So this is a good time to sharpen those skills for sure. So next I'll turn it over to Diane from the School of Professional Studies. Thank you, Diane. There you go.
So I'm going to talk to you about interview prep. As mentioned, you don't want to stop your job search, right? And so hopefully there are going to be opportunities for you to get out there and do that interview. So I don't think, you know, virtual interview, there's definitely tips for that, and I'm going to provide those to you, but just general interview prep requires you really knowing what the job is, knowing who the company is and the culture of that company. And I really like to focus my job searches on, you know, having a targeted list of organizations and knowing why you want to work for them, being able to research potentially the previous job holder or why this position is opened is very important in preparing for that interview. And then knowing what is the platform or the format of the interview. So what kind of a platform are they going to be using? Is it going to be Skype? Is it going to be Zoom? Is it going to be another form? Is it going to be an avatar interview? So really getting these questions answered for you as you're setting up the interview. You want to make sure you know if you're going to be talking to real people or if you're going to be doing a recorded interview. You're going to be talking to one person, or is it a panel interview? And these are all things that you can definitely ask about as you're setting up that process. So do the research on what the platforms are going to be. And then, of course, you want to do research on the interviewers. It's perfectly fine to go on and look at their LinkedIn profiles. I think they expect it. I don't think they're thinking you're stalking them by doing so. So definitely do your research. And through that, you can also identify the kind of questions you think you might get. So looking at the just job descriptions, responsibilities, key skills, Glassdoor is a great place to look at what kinds of questions have been asked in the past for these interviews. So make sure you're doing your research. The nice thing is, if it is a virtual interview, you do have opportunity to prepare yourself and have some sticky notes. They can't see your screen. I wouldn't be distracted by sticky notes though. So if you're gonna, you might want to just remind yourself of a success story that you want to make sure that you, what I call a must-tell story, that you have the title there, that you make sure that you've got hit some key words that you want to address in the interview process. But if you're going to use these sticky notes, don't have elaborate notes that you can't read and they're distracting you. So look at the virtual interview prep. First of all, you want to make sure that you've tested your internet connection. If you can be connected directly to your Ethernet, do that so that you don't go in and out. That can be very distracting if that's the case. You want to make sure that you have your computer on an appropriate platform so it's showing you in the right light. Make sure that you have a kind of neutral background as much as possible, that you don't have light shining in behind you. Have a quiet location. Definitely, if you can, wear earpods and make sure you have a pretty good stream going. You want to test your image and show how you look on the screen. You want to dress professionally, right? You want to make sure that you are dressed the way you would go into an interview in person. As I said, test the sound. follow the employer's instructions. So listen to what they have to say, and they may share with you the way that they want to do this format. So take from their direction. Visual presentation, and I think this is, it can be very difficult when you're doing an interview. You want to be looking into the camera. So I would recommend having a little, maybe a sticky or a smiley face to remind you where the camera is and to focus on that sticky so that you are actually looking at the individuals during the interview. Smile. Smiling is key. It really, it changes your inflection. When you're smiling, you have a much more enthusiastic manner about yourself. Body language, try to minimize those movements as much as possible. We tend to, I've seen many people where they're kind of going back and forth. So where you can avoid doing that, you want to practice your body language. Frame yourself in the screen so that you're in the middle of the screen. As I mentioned, that lighting, again, no shadows. Your voice is key in these virtual interviews. And make sure you're practicing before you do the virtual interview. And to that end, I wanted to mention great place for practicing virtual interviews. LinkedIn has just added in this virtual interview prep, which is free. And you can go in and practice your interview. They have about 25, 30 questions, and they give you not only a question, but a strategy and a way to answer these questions. And you can really get, practice and take it 2 or 3 times and save that interview. What I love about this is then you can actually reach out and get feedback from your network. And it's a great way to engage your network in your job search strategy at this time. So being able to practice, it's free. You can get, again, specific tips from many different people about how you should answer the question. You can then video yourself doing that question, practicing that question. And when you get a good practice one, you save it and then share it with your network. I'm adding some resources here for you as well. That's the LinkedIn virtual interviews. Indeed has great advice on video interviewing. HireVue provides some great questions as well as the practice. So they also have a virtual platform. I think LinkedIn Learning has been mentioned on many occasions, but this is a great resource for all of our Columbia students. And so when they send this out, you'll have these resources too. And I look forward to questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And just a tip to everyone who is registered, yes, we will share the PowerPoint slides that our presenters have shared with you today. So next up is Tom. Thank you, Tom.
I'd like to spend a few moments speaking about what employers are seeking when they're hiring new talent in a marketplace like the one that we're faced with today. One of the things that we're well aware of is the fact that prior to the pandemic, the world was changing rapidly, largely driven by technological advances. And with changing workplaces, the skills that companies are looking for is likely to change. One of the things that we have found is that typically the attributes that are being changed, that are being in demand these days, are a reflection not only of skill set, but of mindset. It goes without saying that candidates, to be viable candidates, need to possess the requisite skills as laid out in the job description. However, in addition to that, increasingly candidates that set themselves apart are those that can reflect a certain mindset. Carol Dweck has a good book out that many people may be familiar with called Mindset: The New Psychology of Success. Some key attributes of mindset are things like adaptability and flexibility. To be successful, today's workers need to be able to adapt to evolving workplaces and have the ability to continuously update their skills. A desire to proactively seek out new learning and demonstrate intellectual curiosity, to take initiative, not only to respond to changes in the workplace, but to be seen as an agent of change, is a very valuable mindset to bring to the workplace as well. Emotional Intelligence is a book that was written by Daniel Goleman, and there's been a lot of talk about it. So many people, I'm sure, are familiar with these concepts already. It's even more important in a changing and uncertain times like the ones we're faced with, the ability to be aware of our emotions, to express them appropriately, and to control them, and to be aware of others' emotions increasingly become important in a changing workplace like the one that we're faced with today. I'm sure that many people are familiar with the terminology of VUCA. It's a term that was coined initially by the US Army War College after the Cold War, and it's since transitioned from a military context to business settings. As we well know, organizations are operating in a VUCA world today, and this impacts the skills that are being sought by companies and organizations and the types of candidates who are in demand. Leaders increasingly these days are facing challenges for which in many cases there are no solutions, yet they of course have to make decisions anyway. To be successful in a job search, candidates can often benefit by recognizing this reality and presenting themselves as problem solvers who can operate and excel under such viable and variable circumstances. A VUCA world has both dangers as well as opportunities. So how do we do that? We want to turn VUCA around is one way to look at it. Talk about the things that we're bringing to the table. I won't bother speaking to the comments that are here on the slide, but ways in addition to vision and understanding, one particular value is the ability to immerse ourselves in unfamiliar environments and to learn from them. Here's a select group of skills for a post-COVID world. This is not, of course, exhaustive or all-inclusive by any stretch, but to comment on a few of these, things like committing to a lifetime of learning. Naveed had referred to this earlier. This ties also into intellectual curiosity that I mentioned earlier. According to the World Economic Forum, in just 5 years, it's expected that 35% of the skills that are deemed essential today will change. To remain relevant, we want to commit to a lifetime of learning. We've seen the importance of creativity and innovation during the pandemic. Businesses have come up with new ways of delivering services virtually, like many healthcare providers have done, or to shift to new products, like the manufacturers and auto plants that are now making ventilators. In the future, human creativity is going to be needed to dream up new products and new ways of working. During the pandemic, we've seen a spike in fake news and misrepresentation of data. People who possess critical thinking skills, who can objectively evaluate information from diverse sources and determine what's credible, are going to be very valued. The gig economy is likely to grow. People are increasingly going to be working on fluid teams, different people taking the lead at different times. Professionals who can inspire and bring out the best in teams and encourage collaboration are going to be in demand. And then data literacy, of course. Data is critical. It's a critical asset for every company in order to understand business trends and shifting consumer needs, as we've seen in recent months. However, data alone is useless to a company unless there are people who are equipped with the skills to understand the data and make better decisions because of it. Tech savviness, of course, goes without saying, given the evolution of what's happening in our economy today. Technologies like artificial intelligence and big data, the Internet of Things. Candidates who can help organizations to leverage these technologies will be in great demand. A few quick things also. It's one thing to possess these competencies and skills, as has been said earlier, and also an additional important competency and skill is to be able to communicate these. When telling our story, when delivering our pitch, we want to be able to do so in a way that highlights our skills, talks about our competencies, our experiences, and how they align with the needs of the organization. Thank you. I look forward to expanding on this as well during the Q&A.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas. So that was a great review of what employers are now looking for, because certainly the world has changed. So next up is Meg from SEPA. Thank you, Meg.
Yes. So we're talking today about how to use our alumni networks and leverage those. Pardon me. So networking is absolutely key in anybody's internship search or job search. It's estimated that 85 to 90% of jobs and internships are found through networking. So we're going to talk today about how to do that with our alumni networks. In the past, we would encourage people to network both in person as well as virtually. Well, these days we need to focus solely on our virtual component. So you want to use your digital tools that include your LinkedIn profile, the school LinkedIn group if you have one, as well as the larger Columbia alumni community to network. And if you're a graduate student, I would also urge you to remember your undergraduate school as well. Now, when you reach out to alums, you want to do so in a very professional and polite manner. And I would really encourage you to have a specific ask. So, I'd love to schedule an informational interview with you, just something specific that they would need to respond to. Now, you don't want to ask for a job, all right? But you do want to ask to potentially meet with them to get some information about their careers. One of the most important things to ask in these informational interviews is, do they know the names of one or two other people within the field or within the space who might be willing to speak with you? That way you ensure that your network grows over time. Now, it's not a race to have 1,000 contacts, but you do want to encourage your network to grow, right? Now, some people in this interesting situation that we find ourselves have said to me, Meg, it seems like nobody, employers don't know what's happening, so maybe I should just stop my search and pick it up again in a month's time. Well, I think now is the time that you want to lay the groundwork for applying to jobs. So networking with people is absolutely key, all right? So I would not stop the process. Rather, I would be laying the groundwork and talking to as many people as you can, and just learning what opportunities are out there. In terms of the actual meeting itself, you actually scheduled this meeting. So you need to have questions lined up that you can ask them. Most of the schools at Columbia, ourselves included, have fact sheets on questions you can ask in the informational interview. But think about what you want to know, right? How did you get into this job? What advice would you have for a job seeker? All of these are important questions to ask, all right? Now, in terms of after the meeting, you want to make sure that you send out a thank you note within 24 hours. For a select few people that you meet with, where you really feel that connection, I would try to encourage continued conversations. And I don't mean stalking people. I mean, maybe every 5 to 6 weeks, sending them an email, giving them an update on your job search, because they may not know of an opportunity now when you're speaking with them, but that something may cross their desk in a month's time. And rather than be, who was that person that I met with? What was her name again? You will still be on their radar screen. Lastly, I think it's really important that you be organized and strategic about this process. So I say create the Excel spreadsheet, because once you've met with the 5th or 6th person that you do conduct informational interviews with, their names are going to all start to melt together. Who said what and when? And you can keep careful notes there of people that you need to circle back with, right? You can put reminders on your phone if you need to remember to reach out to people. You can use HubSpot. That's a great resource. And I also urge you to make an appointment with a career advisor at your respective schools, because they will have contacts as well and hopefully can make some connections for you. So I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Really appreciate the review of how to really engage with our alumni. And actually, to follow up on that, I'm going to invite now Jenna from CAA to take the helm. Jenna?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. The CAA, we are always looking for opportunities to share more about what we do, and make sure that our graduate students and of course our undergraduate students know what options are available. But today I'm going to just share a few different things with all of you. Meg had perfect advice for how to be reaching out to your alumni. I'm going to show you a little bit about how you can find them. Of course, this is specific to the Columbia Alumni Association. So this is the university-wide Alumni Association, which you can reach out to in addition to your grad schools and your undergraduate programs. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see this. The website that is for all alumni is alumni.columbia.edu. I can put that in the chat after we're done. And you can see here there are a number of different tabs across the top of the screen right here. There are a few in particular I'm going to share with you now. The alumni community, just move this. If you're not already a member, I highly, highly, highly recommend joining. It's available to all alumni and all students. I'm not going to log in right now, but all you need is your uni and a password, and you can log in really easily. If you have any difficulty at all, this phone number and this contact, our folks are still, we're not in our, of course, but we're still ready and able to help you. In this online community, you're able to search by school, search by profession, search by graduation year, search by all sorts of different filters to really narrow down exactly who you're looking for. So while you're certainly, as Meg said, certainly not going to reach out and say, hey, give me a job, you can reach out and say, you know, start conversations about how folks got to where they are, maybe learn a little bit about career paths, things like that. Another really great resource is this tab that says career resources. We try to make this as user-friendly as possible. And right on this page, you'll see a whole bunch of different places you can click into. Of course, tagging out to your school-based career centers, but we also host online networking events fairly regularly. We have a whole network of career coaches. The CAA LinkedIn page is an amazing resource, just like any other LinkedIn page, but this is really for all alumni. So if you're looking for somebody specific that you don't necessarily need to connect with somebody from your school, this is a page to look for. While we're certainly not going out and meeting folks right now, one day we will be. And if you want to make business cards for yourself, you have an opportunity for you to make alumni business cards here too, as well as tools and some job boards, etc. Another page that I want to show you is where we have our alumni clubs. This is a really great resource for if you're looking to move to a different area, different state, or different country, and you're looking to just make some connections. These generally start off as more social connections, but you never know who you're going to meet, especially if you are home or if you're in a region right now that you maybe didn't expect to be in. I highly recommend finding the regional club that's closest to you. So you can see we have domestic, we have international. Go to their website, join. Everybody's doing all sorts of virtual events, all different kinds of programs and ways for you to connect with people in the area that you might currently be in or be looking to get into. The last tab on this page is the subset of groups that I oversee, and these are our shared interest groups. These are really groups based on industry, based on identity, and based on some different hobby type programs. I definitely recommend looking at these. joining their mailing list. We're working really hard to do lots of programming for these groups as well, where you'll have an opportunity to meet folks who share the same background as you, same interests, things like that. Now's a really great time to be joining one of these groups. Generally, their programming is limited to the tri-state area, but right now, since we're virtual, we're bringing the whole world together, which is really exciting. And lastly, I will show you our events page. Again, right now, we're really focused on lots of virtual events. So you can see here, everything from Tiger King to a virtual conversation hour. Mindfulness, all different sorts of programs to meet people, to get to know the folks in your area. I also will suggest we have a whole page focused on bringing Columbia to you. So you can easily find this. All different events. This is being updated, not quite daily, but pretty close. And a lot of these events, because we know that now is going to be a really challenging time for a lot of people, you'll see right like this, the networking hour. A lot of these events are going to be focused on networking and bringing folks together. We have things that are sorted in different ways, putting a great archive of wonderful speakers, online book clubs, lifelong learning, all sorts of different things. So I highly recommend checking that out. I think this was, without going too far down the rabbit hole, I hope these are some helpful tips and tricks, and I, just as everyone else, welcome any questions anyone might have. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak with you.
Great. Thank you, Jenna. And thank you to all the panelists. Really helpful tips and advice. We now have a few minutes for Q&A. And so I want to remind folks to send their questions via chat to the host, which is University Life. And I think we have a couple of questions in the queue already. So Bryant, I'm going to turn it over to you to read the first couple of questions.
Great. Hello, everyone. So going through the list, we have one: what are your recommendations for practicing creativity or honing a creative mindset? Another question, similar in the same theme: how can we show our soft skills, such as emotional intelligence or listening skills, to our potential employers, presumably during an interview or some sort of opportunity to speak with them? And well, let's tackle those two for now.
So I could jump in on that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Nope. I'd be happy to speak briefly about the emotional intelligence one. One thought that I have, I often recommend to students as they're preparing for interviews is, and this ties in with listening as well, I think there's a tendency to, on the part of a candidate, to feel that in an interview setting, the minute the recruiter stops talking, we have to jump in and start talking. There's nothing more awkward than that pregnant pause and that awkward silence. And I think often, if you know what you're going to say, that's fine to jump right in. But I think often, if you need a moment to structure your thoughts, it can demonstrate maturity and a certain sense of confidence to pause and take a moment to just collect your thoughts for a moment before jumping in and answering. Now, sometimes on a phone, that might be a little awkward. You might want to say something just to buy yourself some time, but it's easy enough to say something like, that's interesting. Let me think about how I might want to approach that. Or you say something. But I think that's one way of demonstrating maturity and emotional intelligence. Otherwise, I think EQ is the kind of thing that gets assessed through observation more than anything else. I hope that's helpful.
And I also mentioned that I think these are things that could be practiced. Active listening can be practiced, and there are certain tenets in terms of things that you have to know about active listening, right? Actually listening, either summarizing or reiterating what the person has said to you, things in terms of other parts of EQ, you know, managing negative stressors. We talked about empathy. Empathy is a huge one, right? So practicing empathy is part of emotional intelligence. And sometimes just understanding how some of the things, the words, the vocabulary that you use, and how that can be perceived or understood by somebody else, and putting yourself in their shoes, is something that you could just practice. And it eventually comes with doing rather than saying sometimes.
I can jump in. I would just say that also during the course of the interview, many students think that questions can only be asked at the end of an interview. And in fact, the interview can be a conversation. So I think showing your listening skills during the course of the interview itself and reacting to things or asking follow-up questions in the moment instead of holding everything to the end can be a great way to demonstrate those skills as well.
I agree. I think, you know, it's got to be a good conversation is ultimately what you want to walk out of the interview with is, you know, it shouldn't be them asking you the question and you answering the question, but rather more of a conversational process. And I think that helps with the EQ too.
I think that
yeah.
behavioral, sorry about that, Heather. I think that behavioral questions can often get to some of these things too. Tell me the time that you failed, right? Tell me the time that you disagreed with your boss. I think you can also get some good emotional intelligence from those questions as well.
I wanted to address the creativity question really quick because that was the second question, or first. So I just would like to suggest for everyone to pivot their thinking a little bit and think of every possible opportunity which might be related, not just to the industry or sector that you're originally interested in, but also your skills. Everyone in career services will tell you about translatable skills, transferable skills, figuring out what you're actually good at, what you have an aptitude for, and then look outside and look at who's needing those skills right now. And I'll just give a short vignette. So in Michigan, my mother lives there, and lawn care services are no longer an essential business. She needs her groceries delivered, but she doesn't really know how to use all these online grocery delivery services. So the lawn care company now does grocery delivery to people who are stuck at home. This is just a really silly example, but thinking about where is there a need and how can you use your basic skills, whatever your tough skills are, and think about where are the growth areas: public health, hard science, lab management. There's always data analytics. There's direct care. There's going to be a huge need for human services. For people who are unemployed to find employment, that's going to be a huge need. So just think creatively. Logistics and supply chain is a huge, massive problem right now. So think about all of your translatable skills. I'm going to put something in the chat, which is a very common career assessment. It's through the ONET Online Career Interest Survey. It's very quick. You can do it yourself, and it'll show you some of the top skills or job functions that might make sense for you. And then you may look for where is there a growth area. So that's just an idea of being creative, entrepreneurial, thinking outside the box a bit.
Wonderful, thank you. I just received another question. Are there any tips on staying focused on applying for jobs in the field that this person is studying in, rather than snapping up something that potentially he or she might be overqualified for? I think, speaking personally, I sort of came of age during the last recession, and I remember sort of my own sort of, for lack of a better word, dreams or career path kind of took a sideways to just trying to get paid. So anyone here could speak to that?
I think it's a balancing act. In other words, I still encourage people to look at their dream jobs, but we've got to pepper that with a little bit of realism as well. So, and also with bills coming in, things like that, what's the balance here, right? So having a timeline, having a plan A, but also having a plan B that you're doing in a parallel fashion, I think is the smart way to go to hedge your bets.
I tell people, when in doubt, apply for the job. Just go for it. You should not be the one making the decision about whether or not you're the qualified candidate. Let the employer make that decision. If you meet the basic requirements or 70% of the requirements, why not go for it? Underqualified, overqualified, highly qualified, you know, push for everything you can in this environment without just applying randomly, obviously. You have to be targeted also.
Agreed. I think, you know, it is that plan A, B, and potentially C in this pandemic.
Yep.
I think happenstance can bring really interesting, you know, blessings into our lives. So being open and curious and trying new things at this time, it could bring good opportunity down the road.
Well, Diane, that's a great note to wrap up on, being open and curious and making yourself available to opportunities, I think is an attitude we all need to embrace right now. And so I appreciate that. And like I said, I think it's a great note to wrap up on. We are at time. There may still be some questions out there for folks. Feel free to email us at universitylife.columbia.edu, and we will be happy to follow up with you. Also want to remind everyone that we will be sending out the presentations that the presenters shared with us today, and we hope to post a recording of this session to our website shortly. I know that time is precious, always, but certainly right now, and that everyone is a little overloaded with Zoom. So really appreciate you all carving out the time and attention to spend this last hour with us. Hope you got a nugget or two out of it. Many thanks to all of our presenters and panelists for sharing your words of wisdom at this time. And with that, I wish everyone well, stay healthy, be safe, and good luck out there. Take care, everyone.